All right. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of The Legend of the Three Kingdoms. Yes, this is my custom D&D campaign set in my weird, demented world, and these are the people that have agreed to allow me to abuse them on camera, just for my own fun, seeing as I'm not making any money off this. So I was going to say abuse them on camera for money, but there's no money here. Uh, anyway, let's get right into the story itself. So, after uh, kicking out the Dark Lord from his lair and kind of installing Celeste, the patron of two of the characters, um, you guys dealt with a few extra things of just clearing out the remaining bad from the lair, and then started heading east towards Tree Rot Arena in order to kind of get your bearings and kind of get back to your quest of figuring out this whole like rift thing that was going on. On the way there, you ran into another rift. This one actually changing the land, not just around it, but for a pretty far uh, radius of land around it was changed into this kind of coral type stuff with lots of water everywhere. You fought your way through to it, found out that it was somehow connected to this strange, magically altered werewolf that was kept in a cage at the bottom of a lake right next to the tear or a rift. Um, After accidentally unleashing it, you met the current war chief of Fenrish and his close group of friends called the Blood Pact, who promptly slayed the werewolf, and then everything just started to collapse. One of your party, Henri, was unfortunately unable to get away from there. And the rest of you, after having a short conversation with the war chief, decided to try to head back to Celeste Lair to recover and figure out what it is that happened, because Celeste seemed to think there was something more going on. On the way, you found this very strange blue-skinned humanoid who has a command of magic that's impressive to say the least, and destructive to say the most. Um, After killing a T-Rex and harvesting some bits from it, you guys were on your way back to Celeste's lair and started getting attacked by these strange wolf apparition things. After putting your heads together, you were able to figure out that a vampire was capitalizing on some old mythology and some illusion magic to apparently attempt to attack you, but for what reason you don't really know. After fighting her a little bit and watching her retreat, the party was able to make it back to Celeste's lair pretty late at the night, like kind of in the middle of the night, and that's where we left off. So, like I said, it's very very late. You guys get in. Normally, the I can't speak, guys. No, normally the the front area. There's kind of this very large, kind of curtained entryway, and then there is the kind of the dais with the throne, where the Dark Lord used to kind of meet his guests. As you guys come in, not only are the curtains closed, which is not completely uncommon, but you haven't seen them completely closed since you liberated the place. But as you get close enough to try and move them, they don't move. Like, they seem significantly heavier than any cloth should be. So what would you all like to do? They don't move at all. They still feel like cloth, like they have the kind of fuzziness, but they don't even ruffle or anything. Like it's like stone cloth almost. Has a texture of cloth, but is completely unmoving. Charisma based casters always get you. As you sit there, kind of pleading to the curtain, nothing happens. Make me an attack roll. All right. So as you sit there and kind of start swinging your flail around, you give it one big push, and as it impacts the wall, you hear this very sharp cracking sound of metal against stone, and then there is this strange kind of pulse that hits all of you as it just radiates from it. You watch the very corners of the curtains start moving around as if there's a wind blowing it, and then more of it starts doing that. You see the curtains start to open, but instead of seeing the antechamber you're used to seeing, you see kind of darkness. And as you look more, you start seeing that it's not complete darkness. There's some sort of cave under behind it, and the curtains keep kind of moving and things like that. And as you look closer, the curtains are now starting to form shapes, and you start seeing these large, off-white spikes starting to appear in random places. And as you look closer and closer, the entire center of the curtains, you hear this ripping sound, and you watch as this rip goes laterally across the bottom or middle of the curtain, and as it opens up, you see this massive toothy maw with razor sharp teeth. And I need everyone to make a wisdom saving throw. we will start with Argenta. All right, Vala. All right, Lilian. Okay. Nameless. And Commander. All right. So Argenta and Vala, you guys see this massive maw. You can see saliva dripping from it, and you start to feel your muscles kind of tense. You feel this kind of tingling sensation in your fingertips and in your toes. You can feel the adrenaline start to pump, but you kind of fight through it and keep your focus. However, Lilian, Nameless, and Commander, you guys can't control yourselves, and you just feel the terror start to take over. You are all three afraid of this creature. So why don't you guys roll me an initiative? Inspiration can be a very useful thing. Not an initiative because it doesn't technically count as an ability check. So just a regular roll for that. Yep. Argenta, what you got? All right. Val? Lilin? Damn. Then the Nameless? You guys gotta pick a name for him. Commander? Wow, lots of fast people. So Val and Lilian, you guys actually went at the same time, but I'm gonna say because Lilian, you are frightened, it's gonna take you just a split second longer to do something, and Vala, you will go first. Again, there's this giant toothy maw in front of you. Oh, that's amazing. To take inspiration for that because that is brilliant. Um, what is your DC? And is it wisdom? All right. So as you sit there and you focus and cast your spell, it doesn't seem to have affected it at all. You're not sure, maybe because you can't see ears on this giant mouth. Maybe it just didn't hear you, but it seems to have resisted the effect. However, that is amazing. Okay, as you start to back away, it very quicker than you think should be possible. it goes and it tries to take a bite out of you. And I need a wisdom save from you. Yeah, as it starts to go, you just very quickly throw yourself back and actually go into a bit of a somersault as it just barely misses your chest. But you are able to get out of the way. Okay. Sooner or later, Lillian's gonna get you. Lillian, you're up next. Let's say 10 feet because Argenta would have been the absolute closest because she actually had to hit it. Um, and anytime someone's swinging a flail at a stationary object, it's a good idea to put a little space. Okay. All right. So as you sit there pulling your long sword out, you slice one of your fingers, and as the blood leaks out, it glows this bright white light enveloping your entire blade. You where are you moving? Well, with you being feared from it, you can't willingly move closer. The light is nice. I mean, now you've got light. You can see a little bit deeper into the gullet of this creature. You're kind of surprised, like it doesn't look like it brushes all that well, but no really bad breath or anything like that. Yeah, for just normal fear, you can't willingly move closer to it, and whenever you can see it, you have disadvantage on just about everything. Okay. Next up is Commander. Again, with your kind of penchant for just being far away, let's say you're 15 feet instead of 10. Okay, make your attack rolls with disadvantage. Okay, that's a hit. It's a really big wall. Like, that it's basic. You guys are in a hallway where the entire back wall is a mouth. Like, broadside of a barn would be smaller, and there's nowhere else for the bullets to go. Okay. Um, as you fire them both off, you can swear like you hear bullets striking stone is what it sounds like, but they sound a little bit distant. Um, and as you sit there and you see where you think they should be impacting, they just seem to go down the gullet and disappear into the darkness. Oh, Lillian, you can make a another wisdom save at the end of your turn for your fear. So now that you've kind of gained your composure, kind of shook off the initial fear, there's still a big freaking mouth with teeth in front of you, but it's not quite gripping you now. Commander, anything else you wanted to do? All right, then you can make your roll as well. It's a scary mouth. Like it's got fangs. Um, the nameless. Maybe we should just call you questions of Mark, or Mark the questioner. I'd say you'd probably be around this same distance as Commander. See, again, you tend to stay away from most things. And Argenta had a really big flail that she swung. So, uh, you can, since you're afraid, the only person you could get to would be the commander. Um, and I think Vala, you kind of moved away, right? You're muted. Okay, so yeah, Commander is basically 15 feet with you. Val is a little bit behind. With your fear, you can move to Commander or you can move back to Vala. But if you move back, you won't be able to get up to Commander again. So, Vala or Commander. Okay, that's interesting. Um, okay, okay. Argenta, you're right next to this the thing. All right, right. You guys hear blood curdling scream as Argenta unleashes her rage. Her muscles start to swell. Pulls out her frozen dagger. Yeah. As you sit there and you swing at this thing, there's a lot of kind of open space in a large mouth. So as you sit there and you hit what you think you should be hitting, you see the dagger kind of pierce into the fabric of what could best be called the cheek, but you don't really feel any resistance. Okay. Uh, sorry. Make me into the deck safe. As you are moving forward, the mouth starts to kind of clamp down on you, but has this spasm of some sort, and the teeth miss you by just mere inches, and then you suddenly hear this, and instinctively you just kind of toss your head back a little bit as something sharp you can't see because of the darkness goes right past your face and a couple places on your body just barely missing you. As you kind of adjust yourself, you feel a click beneath your feet. There doesn't seem to be an answer, but you are literally inside the maw now. Nothing's really happening. Go ahead and give me a perception check. Okay. So looking around, it is dark, almost pitch black where you are. But as you look back, you can see your friends, and one of the kind of like cheeks kind of obscures Vala for first, this is second, but you don't lose sight of her, despite the fact that you're looking through curtains at this point. No, you would have only gone about for 5 feet. As you move back out, for whatever reason, the colors on these curtains have seemed to almost fade somewhat. And as you look closer, you can see a stone pattern behind them, as if you're looking through them. Okay. But back to the top of Vala. You just watched Argenta go into the mouth. The mouth basically eat her, and then she just walks back out with this kind of dejected look on her face. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What level spell is daylight? Okay. So as you sit there and you kind of shine this light in there, the darkness on the inside of the creature's mouth winks out of existence, and you can see on the other side the throne room, but the curtains are still a mouth, and you can see like a tongue there and other things, but the darkness that just seemed to go into nothingness is gone now. Okay. Make me a dex save. You feel this is something click underneath your feet. You feel four different objects but pierce into your side. Uh, you take a grand total of 7 piercing damage, and no, it's not because I rolled mostly ones. 24 poison damage. It's a bunch of D4s and D6s, guys. Okay, Fall just um Vavala for the next hour, because you were knocked out with the poison. You will be under the effects of the poison condition. To the rest of you guys, Vala went in there. The mouth just clamped down on here, chewed for a little bit, and then she was gone. And the mouth has been apparently brushing with crust. Sparkling white smile. So while you can't really see Vala from like behind the lips of this mouth, there is a very bright light. I'm pretty sure it's concentration. I'm gonna look it up real quick. Normally, those really nice spells have daylight. No concentration. Just an hour of annoying lights. Perfect for annoying your neighbors, getting the homeowners association mad at you, all those lovely things. Lillian, you've just seen one of your friends get eaten by curtains. Give me a dex check. So, gotta admit, they weren't quite expecting this much action. So, supplies are running low. Or saving the throw. Sorry. You got an 8? Okay, I'm not rolling those on my own again. So 9 piercing damage. And 24 poison damage if you're still there, Lillian. If, however, you've turned into a murderous young girl in a blue dress, all the power to you. So once we get Lillian back, we'll find out what that did to her. Commander, as of right now, you've just seen this mouth eat to two of your friends, apparently willingly. There's Lillian. Lillian, you took 9 piercing damage and 24 poison. Are you still conscious? Okay. So, anything else you want to do with your turn? You've used, I think, a grand total of 15 feet of movement. Well, Argenta walked back out, so you could always see her. But you do see Vala unconscious on the floor and then next to you. Sure, if you want to try to stabilize her, you can do that. Or if you have a healing potion, you could heal her. Okay. So yeah, just roll a medicine check. You're looking for it to 10 or higher. Okay. Yeah, so you kind of you take out the darts that are sticking out of Vala. You put some cloth on them to kind of stem the bleeding a little bit. Though there's really not that much blood, and you kind of turn her over so that she can breathe a little bit easier. You do notice around her lips they have this kind of sickly green tint to them, and also around her eyes. Beyond that, though, she seems fine. She's breathing. It's a little labored, but so that was your action. Yeah, if you want to drag her back to the rest of the party, because dragging her will take the double movement. You'll basically just be able to get her, basically here. So right outside the mouth. Okay. So, Commander, you saw Vala voluntarily sacrifice herself to this, curtain mouth, and then Lillian do this the same thing, uh, and then Lillian slowly pulls out Vala, apparently ruining whatever ritual she was trying to perform. Okay. Works for me. Go ahead and make me another wisdom save. You are finally able to kind of shake this petrifying fear. But before you can do anything, nameless. So You do your best flash impression. Zhoo, 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 zhoo. Anything else? Nope. That brings us to our Genta. Okay. You feel another clicking sensation. Go ahead and roll me another dex check. Yep. So you go through. You hear the familiar puff you heard before. You see some objects whizzing right through the area you used to be occupying, and then you're on the other side, and you see the courtyard. As you kind of could come to this to stop on the other side, you see the eastern door open, and wow, I completely blanked on the name of the girl that's here. Was Celeste? Yes, Satin. Satin comes out, sees you, and goes, "Oh no, no, no!" And she runs forward, and you see her place her hand on a glowing rune that you were unable to see because it's on a back wall. She places her hand. You see her concentrate for a second, and suddenly the mouth is gone. The curtains are just hanging where they normally do, slightly ajar, and somewhat. You can see some like tattering to the curtains as well. Like there's one spot where you can see like a tear, roughly the size of your flail. Another one where there's a kind of just a cut in it, roughly the size of your dagger, and you see a little bit of frost around it, and you see, yeah, some bullet holes. Actually, if you look at the back wall, the very back wall, there are now bullet holes in the back of this room. And you watch as the Satin goes over, and she kind of pushes on an area of the floor that moves a little bit, and you see her just kind of pull a lever, and you look to see where the pressure plates are, and they're just literally like a 16th of an inch higher than the rest of the floor around them, almost impossible to see, but you see them just sink to be perfectly level with the rest of the floor. And she looks at you. Why are you here so late? And why didn't you call for us or say something to Celeste? I would have. Who's hurt? She kind of gives you this look of incredulousness. You led vampires here? Okay. Well, did anyone get hurt by the traps or anything? Satin just looks at you, kind of like a puppy that's confused. And then she sees Vala, and she kind of rushes over, and she places her hands on the wounds and concentrates. and Valis, this is suddenly you feel this kind of warmth rush over you, and you open your eyes, and everything hurts. The thing that you're frightened of doesn't exist anymore, so the frightened's gone. So, Commander, after you give out this rapid fire response, you suddenly just Satin looks at you kind of weird. She looks at Vala, and she notices kind of the green tinge around your mouth and eyes. Guess the poison works, though you're. Let me see if I can find some antidote. And she wanders off. Okay. So as you do that, make me a concentration check. Tony. Yeah. As you do that, you feel this kind of explosion of pain in your head, like an instant migraine. And you falter for a second, but you kind of fight through it as you move your hand up to heal yourself. Like your joints hurt. You can almost feel the bones scraping against each other, and then as you cast the lesser restoration, a kind of different, almost cooling sensation kind of rushes over your body, and you feel a lot better. Joints are still a little bit stiff, and you can kind of feel the echo of that migraine, but for the most part, you feel fine. Well, previously, the Dark Lord had quite a few minions. Someone wandered here by mistake. The Dark Lord would have his minions attack them, and then they would be used for experiments. Celeste is not quite as fond of hurting people, so she had me create a rune that should scare off most, and then for those that wouldn't be scared off, we had a little trap. The poison won't kill anyone, just make them very, very uncomfortable for a while. My purpose was going to be the ability to influence minds with images to convince people to tell the Dark Lord what they knew. And now that Celeste is here, I'm trying to find new ways to use it that aren't quite as damaging. Anyway, it's a little late. If you would like to rest, the bedroom is still open. I do not sleep there. Celeste is currently resting, something recently has upset her greatly. She, she will not be able to see the visitors until tomorrow morning. Mm-hmm. The rune will rearm itself. The magic needs time to recharge. Um, Normally, it will take 24 hours. The trap itself. She goes over and she looks at a few things. Apparently, you are very persistent. We currently do not have more darts prepared. I'll try to collect the few that we do have that are slightly damaged. Try to fulfill it. And so she goes around picking up the various darts, and you see, again in the wall, there's a slight recess where she kind of just presses them in. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's different. Okay. Really nice and soft, clean linens. Vala takes a right and then immediately takes a left, and there's a room full of very nice beds. There's only for four of them, but you do see some bedrolls on the floor as well. Anyone else wanted to do anything before passing out? Mm-hmm. Okay. Lillian, Commander? All right. Commander, make me a dex save. Okay. As you come into the room, because he is now covered with a blanket, you just kind of see a blanket on the floor. As you come in, you trip over him, but catch yourself. Uh, Nameless, you are very quickly awakened by a boot to the gut. As you hear some words that you don't quite remember their meaning, but you think they involve four letters. And then a kind of soft thud as the commander just goes into a bed. Okay. Uh, choose even or odd. Yes, yes. All right. As you sit there and just instinctively shoot out this blue ray, uh, with extra features and like director's commentary, um, it hits the wall and creates kind of a little spot of frost, and then you hear the kind of soft thud as it doesn't get near enough for the to the commander for him to even realize you shot it, and he just passes out. Well, there is a giant T Rex in the room next to you, but he's vegan, so yeah. And the reason you know that is because he told you over and over and over, and I have just alienated the vegan audience. Lillian, anything special you do, or all right? So you guys all get a long rest. Um, nameless when you will wake up, like your back is sore, your joints are stiff from sleeping on the hard floor, but the blanket itself was quite comfortable. You start getting the idea that maybe this whole blanket thing is a good idea. Having something to kind of lay across you to keep your body heat in. There, you guys wake up, and you feel great. Like the beds themselves are really nice and soft. As you wake up, you smell something cooking, um, though you can't tell exactly what it is from here. But there's obviously some sort of cooked meats and some sort of bread. Yay for non-reactive metals. I don't think you can get gold poisoning. Yeah, maybe that's why you're blue. I'm more like the idea that you just appear, or you just could come to consciousness one day. You have a pouch on your belt, and you immediately see, ooh, shiny, nom. Those entitled millennials. Just trying to alienate all the potential audience for the show. Wherever it goes, to the flavor of fruits, wherever it grows. Um, You kind of follow the smell of cooking food, and you come to this room with these two massive long tables, and just rows upon rows of stools next to them. And as soon as you come out, you see a door on the far end of this hallway kind of burst open, and the woman you saw last night starts coming out with this platter that has is just kind of full of these round. They look kind of like brown rocks, but there's this steam coming off of them, and she places them at one end of the table, and then you hear the door open again, and this other person you've never seen, a tall, kind of dark-haired gentleman comes out, and you can see cooked meat, which you've seen before, and places it at another table. And then Satin goes back in and comes out, and there's a little bit of fruit, and not a ton, nowhere near as much as the hot rock things in the meat. And the gentleman goes back and brings out some. They look kind of like ceramic discs, and then little weapons, like tiny little daggers, and then like a trident that's like a hand-sized tridents. And you see them take some of the hot rocks, some of the meat, and some of the fruit, and then just sit down and eat. No, and for fortunately. Yeah, they need the as you smell the rolls themselves. They obviously used butter in them because you get that really strong sense of it. Um, but the particular part of the world that you're in, um, it's the rainy season. It gets cold later on, but keeping dairy products in that cold enough to keep for very long is a little bit hard. So they just don't keep it. Most houses don't keep a ton of it. So this is stored. They keep just what they need, and then if they have extra milk, they just sell it off. Things like that. Not that you've seen, but you also don't know where the meat is coming from, or where they're getting the wheat. So obviously, there's this is something about this you don't understand. Okay. You do notice the while the meat itself is okay, it's not great meat. It's a little bit it's a little tough, and it's not seasoned super well. The bread is amazing, and you actually see there's some rolls. There's actually some corn cakes um, in there. There's even a couple that are a little bit sweeter. Okay. Just as a matter of fact, the stone is, or the table is made of stone. Getting a tree that long is not something you will find in anywhere in Fenrish. They've got a few forests in Valakukovia that have really tall trees, but that's the other side of the continent. So these are stone. As you're sitting there talking on a nameless, you suddenly feel something smack you in the back of the head. And it has like a spongy quality to it. As it hits you, it kind of compresses a little bit, and then you hear it hit the ground behind you. It's a roll. Still tastes pretty good. Mm-hmm. He looks at you, uh, and you see him, and he just makes these strange signs at you. And as he sees you look just confused, he looks over to Satin, who makes these strange hand signs back to him. She goes, "He's deaf. He can't hear you. He speaks with his hands. I can teach you if you would like to learn." Right, and she teaches you some very over the next hour. She teaches you some very basic signs like hi and a name and a lot of other signs that I can't remember because my sign language is really bad. Um, but you learn some very basic stuff. You know, thank you and other things. You can you're not to the point where you could have a conversation with him. Um, but you have enough that he could get your attention, and obviously he can still write things down and stuff like that if he needs more complete. Um, but in the brief amount of time that you guys were here, um, you've never seen Satin or anyone else do this before. But as they continue to speak, she speaks it as naturally as if it was her first language. Hmm. I've never thought. I mean, basically, it'd be kind of like reading lips because it's not that they can't understand the language; they just can't hear. Yeah, he just looks at you and he looks a little bit insulted, and you see him just do this and then go back to eating. Satin kind of turns. Satin kind of turns to you, seeing kind of what happened. She speaks a little bit to him. She goes, "It's considered rude to invade someone's mind without their permission, even just to communicate." By the way, you learn his name is Tavaler. She kind of looks at you. It's interesting. If you would like my skills that come naturally to involve healing. The Dark Lord didn't see a large amount of use in those other than extending the amount of pain he could cause. So they're not very well developed, but if you'd like, I can try to do something about your memory. If you would like, I can try to see if I can let you access more of your memory, heal whatever has caused you to forget. She kind of looks puzzled, and she turns to the rest of you. Well, if you would like me to attempt to let me know, otherwise, um, I shall go see if Celeste is ready to speak with you. She gets up and she signs a little bit to Tavaler, and then heads towards the back meeting room with the teleportation circle. Tavaler seems to kind of finish up what he's doing, and then picks up his plates. He comes over and he just kind of points at your plates, and then back at himself. Obviously, offering to clear them away. Right, so there's crumbs on the table in front of you and a plate next to you. So he picks them all up, and as he spins around Vala, you feel something kind of spongy smack you in the back of the head, and then hit the ground. Nope. Obviously, the roll impacted you, but for the life of you, you've no idea where it came from. Nope. He complete wrong direction for where the roll was to come from. You have to catch them like other food. It was impressive that Satin was able to catch all of those rolls in the first place, but apparently she didn't hit them hard enough, and some of them started to recover. Okay. Sure. So as you kind of like just scan around the room and everything, again, this whole place has kind of a residual magical energy from when the Dark Lord was here. But beyond that, and like the magic items your other party members are carrying, nothing jumps out. You look around, and indeed, you don't see Preach anywhere. Yeah, you do remember when you all left the bedroom. Uh, one of you would have gone, "Hey, we're gonna go eat," and got hit in the face with a pillow. So last you saw her, she was sleeping in. So what do you guys want to do? Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Sure. So, are you gonna ready the spell or? Okay. Yeah. You kind of go through the motions of casting it. You're basically holding it in your hands, waiting for something to happen. Go ahead and roll me a perception check with the disadvantage because holding the spell and looking into intently is kind of hard. Okay, make it a. So the way that inspiration works is it lets you roll advantage on a roll. So you do have to declare it before you roll. So this will just make it a flat roll. Mm-hmm. All right. So you're sitting there, looking, holding this spell as long as you can. Okay. So, Commander. Yeah. Anyone that's wondering what's going on, in roll 20, you can whisper to anyone, and only they will see your text. So, Commander tried to whisper me as he tried to throw another roll, but it he did it wrong, and so now everyone can read that he rolled a 22. So Vala, as you're just sitting there, just searching, you feel a thud on the back of your head. You spin around, but by the time you do, the spell has faded in your hands, and there's nothing there as Commander walks out. That was just so good. Oh man, this sucks. Uh, okay. Um, as you wander around, and you kind of look into the bunk room, which has a bunch of like bunk beds, and it's very tight quarters. And even after kind of the place was exorcised, um, uh, the bunk room still has kind of a smell to it. It's not like revolting or anything, but it just smells a little off. This is where all the undead things used to sleep. And as you kind of go in, you to turn around, you suddenly see Satin coming out and going, just kind of looks at you odd for a second, goes, if you would bring your friends, Celeste is ready to meet with them. And again, just kind of, and then walks past you. Vala, as you're sitting there trying to figure out where this mystery roll thrower is, suddenly you hear the door behind you open. You whirl to face your attacker to see Satin just standing there, looking at you very strange. Mm-hmm. Okay. Satin looks at you like you're nuts, but you get this little, kind of ping in your head coming from the kitchen. And as you follow it, you found the rolls. I don't know what the point of that was, but well, you said you collected all the rolls and put them in the basket. So yes, that's all the rolls. Or has the ability to conjure rolls out of the thin air. It's a new cantrip I created just for this campaign, uh, called Conjure Bread. Sure. What ability are you using? Oh. I mean, sure. The roll. There is no roll thrower in here. Um, how would that? I'm drawing a blank on that. Is there a roll involved? Or you just become ethereal? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Make me make me a perception check with advantage. As soon as you can see stuff most can't. As you guys watch as Lillian just kind of fades for a second, comes to translucent. So looking around, um, is this the first time you've used this ability, or have you ever used it before? Okay. Okay. So with this being the first time you've actually gone into the ethereal plane, which has a connection with, you know, the dead and undead. This is specifically like ghosts and wraiths have a connection to this plane. The first thing you notice is it feels very, very kind of cold and empty. It feels almost like there's a breeze rushing through the room, despite the fact that there's no wind. And as you look around, everything just looks very different. You can see Vala in front of you, but you can also see through Vala at this is the same time, and it's very confusing. And as you sit there trying to look around, you don't see anything that could be this of a phantom roll thrower. But you're also don't have 100% control over this, and you're not 100% used to it, so it is still a little confusing to you. And eventually you'll shift back into the material plane. I think, does it last for a minute or? Oh, okay. So that'd be less than the 30 seconds then. So yeah, you just kind of blink into it. You don't see anything out of the ordinary. You kind of fade back in. Satin now looks at you. Oh, dear gods, I hope not. There's enough of you already. Um, Celeste, for some inexplicable reason, still wants to speak with you. Um, if you would be so kind to collect your, I'm going to go. Thank you. And she kind of wanders off, shaking her head. She goes, but past you, nameless again, and she just looks at you, and she keeps walking. You hear her muttering under her breath something about people said I was crazy. Okay. So as you enter there, you see Celeste um, sitting on the stairs in the front of the throne. You notice that since kind of taking over here, you've never actually seen her in the throne itself. She'll stand in front of it. She'll stand at the base of the steps. So she'll actually kind of just stand with the rest of you guys on the main floor. But she seems to have avoided or for what you've seen, you've never seen her utilize the throne itself. So she comes in. She looks you all over, and she goes, "One of you is missing, and one of you is wrong." must show you something I discovered. Satin. And you see Satin comes in, and she's got this massive tome, much larger than any of the books in the library. Like, this is like tome stand, podium sized tome. And she comes in, and she actually just places it on the ground. It is large enough that you guys really aren't going to have a hard time reading it. And you watch as Celeste reaches down and just starts going through, and she stops on a diagram. And I would like everyone, let's see. Really? Hold, please. My internet connection's good, but Roll20 hates me. There's the music. Hey, can you guys see me? Roll20 was being too nice to us. So... The funny thing is, I didn't drop a single frame. It's incredible. All right, so where did I die? Cool. Place the tome on the floor. It's big enough that you guys can all look around it without even needing it to the table. She's flipping through pages, and she stops on what looks like a diagram of something. And I say, Commander. Actually, everyone, go ahead and just make me just for flat into intelligence checks. So we'll start with Commander this time. Okay? Then a nameless. So while everyone else is looking at this, you just kind of wander. Like your mind just starts wandering. You're like, wow, it's a pretty big room. And there's drawing on the floor over there. I wonder if I can catch any more of those rolls. Like, do they have like packs of them outside the cave that they go out and hunt them, or do you trap them with like little nooses, and you're just kind of caught up in how you would catch that many of these flying hot rocks, soft rock creatures. You scoop them up like a bug net. Lillian, what did you get? Yeah, just a straight intelligence check. 5 Vala. 30-20. Okay, and Argenta. Okay, so Lillian and Argenta, as you guys look at this, you might as well be looking at a map of the New York subway system. It means nothing to you. Val and Commander, though, you both kind of latch on to different parts. Commander, with your kind of penchant for crafting your own weapons and the things like that, you recognize a technical schematic instantly. And looking at this, It's written, uh, it's labeled in a language you don't understand. However, most of the writing on the page isn't letters, it's numbers, which even in different languages you can kind of figure out if you look at it hard enough. Numbers have certain things, and when you look at like lengths and stuff like that, you start kind of piecing together roughly what this the thing is. Vala, you look the exact you notice the exact opposite, that this is a magical device, and all the lines and all the different things. Not only do they have a lot of connections with like natural ley lines and things like that, despite the fact that this, whatever it was not designed to fit in the ground or anything. It just follows very similar patterns, but it also has a biological aspect to it, where you can see what looks almost like it's following the circulatory system of something. And so as you guys both kind of look at it from different aspects of this same thing, you guys both start to realize what it is you're looking at right there, which is, you would assume, a prototype for the various devices you have found in Dormay, that you've found in Valakovia, and what you found underneath this basic diagram, which, looking at the page and everything, this is a very old page, probably hundreds of years old. But aspects of this design have showed up in everything you've been able to examine. You don't know about the werewolf thing because you never got to examine that. Um, they share characteristics. Without being able to examine all of them side by side, and without having a much better knowledge of this whole process, you can't really say what was based on what. All you know is you can recognize pieces of this device in different pieces and different things, but they're definitely there. And because this is so old, you can only assume that this had to have come for first. Aside from looking for a date or something on it, not particularly. There might be some like a form of the identify spell that might give you a better idea, but it would have to be a modified version of it. The basic identify spell doesn't do carbon dating. And but beyond, I mean, you know, just from a casual glance, it's old, but pinpointing it more than, well, it's probably more than 100 years old. But beyond that, you can't really know, or at least not without some pretty specialized magic that none of you could currently specialize in. Surprisingly, not a ton of archaeologists. Um, uh, Possibly. Your roll was a little too low for you to really recognize much. Celeste turns to you and sees kind of the recognition on Commander and Vavala. You've seen these before. The area beneath this lair that I cleansed after you found it. It was based on this device. And reading further in, she keeps turning large amounts of pages. So obviously a fair amount of time passed between this and the next page. She shows what kind of looks like a vampire architecture kind of manor house or castle almost. But you can see smaller sketches of that device placed in the various parts of this castle, and then lots of writing all around it. Some of it arcane, some of it just language that you can't understand. It's the weird vampire. Argenta, you can pick out certain letters and stuff like that, but for the most part, it's gibberish to you. But beyond the idea that you recognize it as some sort of high or ancient vampire, I'm not sure. But as you guys look at this castle, you can see it's a really well done illustration, but the castle isn't on the ground, and they actually took the time to map out the ground and everything like that, and the castle is kind of just floating above everything for half the page. And then right at the center of the page, the ground disappears, and you see what seems to be something different. It's dark, it's wavy, it's this kind of a void of something, and kind of like a barrier around this castle. There's actually a couple different drawings from different angles and things like that. But the main drawing you're looking for is kind of as if you were looking straight at the castle from the ground. Mm-hmm. Make me a history check, and you can go ahead and make that with advantage. As far as like for folklore and stories involving floating castles and that, um, there are a few stories from centuries ago, but before the world was cut off from the other planes, of entire cities that would just float in a sea of clouds. Um, but they were never uh, connected with the prime material plane. Uh, they were just kind of stories that kids could come up about flying castles and the things like that. As far as the vampires, though, you do remember one story about a particularly nightmarish vampire that hated all children. But unfortunately, children were just everywhere because he lived in the middle of this big city, and kids were, just everywhere. And so, eventually, he despised them so much that he created his very own dimension, almost, where not only were there no children, but any bad children that were just truly bad would be sent there and would have to deal with this vampire lord slowly chasing them around this dimension they couldn't leave until he caught them and ate them. And it, is an old kid's story to, keep them in bed at night and stuff like that. But a lot of these kind of fairy tale stories have hints of truth centuries and centuries earlier. And for whatever reason, that idea of a vampire wanting to create his own dimension just stuck out at you. You go ahead and make a history check with advantage because you're blood hunters and stuff. Okay. So you can't think of a good connection to the vampires, but you do know. So this is 16. Okay. Still no connection to the vampires, but you do know of a few really powerful undead creatures that just the kind of perversion of magic that created them and kind of coalesced in them could kind of warp reality around itself to create what's called a demiplane. Very similar to the things like a bag of holding, where it just has that kind of space, or a portable hole where it has this space. It's not technically part of the prime material plane or any other plane. It's just an area. There was just certain creatures that, just because of how bad the magic was that created them, they would warp reality around them and create these tiny little demiplanes, generally not larger than maybe a clearing or a small building or something like that. But normal laws of magic and the things like that wouldn't always work the same way. And the only way to get rid of them was to kill the thing that created it. There were blood hunters that was kind of what they did, was find these kind of perversions of magic. But it hasn't been, those specific things have not been heard of in this continent in a very long time. Mm-hmm. They're obviously designed to channel a liquid, which putting two and two together, they're designed to transport blood in very specific ways. and they are pretty ingenious. Like using the various nozzles and the things like that on it, you can control the rate of the flow. Some of them even have kind of replaceable parts where you could put larger diameter pipes and things like that. To your knowledge, based on the sizes they're describing here, you're not aware of a blacksmith that can make pipes that are this small and this intricate without some sort of magical aid. Even like elven smiths who are renowned for their dexterity would have a hard time making these really, really delicate parts. Mm-hmm. Um, for, for, for the most part, what you can figure out from the mechanics of it is these devices are put from the diagram you're seeing. These devices look to be planted in the walls, specifically so that any part of this building can have blood, various amounts of blood flowing through its walls everywhere. Like basically every solid wall could have blood just behind it. Somewhat your knowledge of the human body is not quite that extensive, but it kind of fits. That is what doesn't make sense to me. Everything from the beginning of this book to the end is in the Dark Lord's handwriting. And we know he's very old, but from what I saw in the basement, all of his knowledge was used in this layer. Why would... How could anyone have gotten that knowledge and used it somewhere else? He was not well liked among the vampires. He was banished. He hid there here to stay away from them. How could these plans have gotten out? This is the only connection the only copy of them I see. Uh, no. When you guys were downstairs, it was almost as sterile. Blood magic is a perversion of magic itself. It can leave scars on the weave. You may even notice here, despite my efforts, there are still scars here. And blood magic itself is used in very small quantities because of the effect it has on the weave. If whatever he was planning to do with everything in the basement had ever happened, if he'd ever activated it, it would have damaged the very fabric of reality. And if he could direct it wherever he wanted, he would have control over that damage. So as you guys are sitting there, and there's been this long kind of silence as everyone is trying to fully grasp what this might mean. Celeste finally starts to speak up. And says, whatever this is, when Henri, whatever happened to him, when it happened, the walls bled. Just for an instant. But I knew something had happened to him the moment it happened. didn't know it was him until I spoke with you, but I knew something was wrong. You see her kind of furrow her brow. Not so much a connection. Again, I can feel the damage he caused this area. But it feels more like a scar than any sort of... Oh. No. When it happened, I felt something cataclysmic, and then suddenly, as if a piece of me had just been destroyed, removed from me. For days afterwards, I felt a hole. Celeste starts looking at you a little closer. Fowler, are you all right? You seem slightly unwell. Would you prefer to... Celeste looks around. Do you just like twist around? Do you take it off and put it back on? What do you... Okay. So you guys can see Vivala, she's kind of got like a flop sweat. She's breathing a little bit faster. Her complexion is pale just ever so slightly. Vala continues to kind of pace around and to try to get her to regain her composure. The circle is a focus to travel to, not to send people from. You would need the knowledge of another circle somewhere else to teleport to. Okay. So Satin or Commander, you can go. So Argentin Commander head out the door. Vala, as you're kind of imploding on yourself, you suddenly feel a very light and warm hand on your shoulder. And you start feeling this kind of calming wave radiating from it. Vala, my champion. I have already lost one. I will not lose a second. My powers are limited currently, but they are not gone. If you wish to fight this, I will help you. And as she says that, you see Satin come up. I will as well. I've quite had enough of vampires and their complete lack of understanding of personal space. Suddenly, Celeste speaks out. Lilane, you're a ghost slayer. You fight the undead. Would any of your order be well versed in hunting vampires or combating them? Well, I think at this particular point, if we have allies out there, it would be best to call in whatever favors we have. Well, I have my connection to Vala. Allows me to speak with her. Beyond that, I'm still relearning much of my former abilities. Lillian, go ahead and roll me a history check. No, this is just your memory. So, because blood hunters themselves tend to work alone, you guys do have kind of accepted ways to reach out if you're looking for more blood hunters for a large hunter, something like that, that are non magical. There are certain caches of carrier pigeons that you can use to send messages specifically to blood hunters, and there are kind of like safe house kind of areas hidden in various places where blood hunters tend to congregate. From where you guys are right now, you're actually not incredibly far from one of the kind of gathering places. It's depending on how fast you go, it's anywhere from a 1 to 3 journey north, east from where you are. Yeah, for a larger group, it goes closer to about the 3 days. But if you're traveling solo and can push yourself, you've heard of blood hunters making the trip in as little as making that kind of distance in as little as a day. And you have been there before, simply from living in Fenrish as a blood hunter. Mm-hmm. From your knowledge, all they really told you is if you needed them, this could help you. So you think, if you had to guess, it's probably like sending stones, where it's connected with a specific other device. Mm-hmm. As you hold it there, you feel this kind of just pinprick in your brain, and suddenly you hear, "Do you want to play?" I don't like pickles. They're sour. Cucumbers are much more fun and much less sour. You can throw them at people, and they explode if you throw them hard enough. Pickles just bounce. Sometimes. And you want to throw a food fight? I don't like the vampires. They did that. They're the ones that brought us here. No, they're stinky. They're, and you hear a pause, and it stretches on longer than you think it should, to the point where you're not sure. Like, you start looking to see if you could crush the acorn. Finally, you go. Finally, you hear, "What's your plan?" It's not very well hidden, then. You have an icky ring on. If you take the ring off, then I'll know where you are. I can come to you. As you do, your head feels fuzzy for a second, and then you feel something kind of a fluttering across your cheek. As you look, there's a little pixie sitting on your shoulder. This is a bad place. It's smelly. And she gets up and she just starts like going around, and you suddenly almost get overwhelmed with the scent of cinnamon, and then flowers, and then a little lavender, uh, and then a bunch of just really weird, random. Like at one point, you smell a wet dog. The next, you smell kind of like the smell after rainfall that, or a lightning storm, that kind of ionized smell, and she's just going around and like Febrezing the entire room with random scents. And eventually, you're smelling cherries and leather, and it's weird. And she kind of stops. She looks at you, and then she looks at, wow. She looks at Celeste. Wow, you're shiny. Not just like shiny, but like shiny. Like insides are shiny too. Ooh, and she kind of darts back to you. She could cause a lot of games to go wrong. She doesn't play by the rules. Then why am I here? And suddenly you feel a flutter on your other cheek. Yeah, what are we doing here? It's boring here. And suddenly, like, you feel something in your pocket as another pixie kind of climbs out of it. Dark and dusty. And then it's, and suddenly you have about like a dozen of these fairies climbing out of like pockets. Some of them actually climb out of your hair. Lillian, as you're sitting there, you suddenly see your scabbard, your sword just kind of pops out of it, and a fairy climbs out of it and goes, "That was in the way. You shouldn't leave things around like that. Someone could get hurt," and it flies off. And you can see Celeste is less than pleased at this point of all these fairies flying around. Celeste looks at you. Not sure these are who I would call friends. More like controlled chaos that isn't controlled very well. Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's just as soon as you say that, it goes, "Oh, that's funny!" And you watch as one of the pixies goes over and just kind of points at the rune, and it instantly recharges and activates, and the mouth starts kind of clamoring. Um, but you see the pixie just looks at it and says, "Oh, this is boring. What if?" And you see two other pixies go in and they start carving a much more intricate group of runes. And you feel like a small amount of pressure on your back as one of the fairies is pushing you to the other side. Watch. And suddenly you see the curtains kind of go back to normal, and then you see this kind of gust of wind. They open up, and you hear this unbelievably loud roar, which the other one didn't really have any sound associated with it. There was just so much chaos going on, you never realized. This is massive roar. A huge gust of wind blows your hair back. Little bits of drool go and cover your face and the things like that. And it looks real. This is gonna be fun. Real quick, what are people's passive perception? Okay, 15. Lillian. Okay, cool. So with that, you can see the pixies of Vala. You kind of lead them outside, and they just instantly go to work creating one of the more elaborate kind of illusion mazes you've ever seen. You've dealt with their illusion mazes before. They're very realistic and they can be dangerous. And whatever they did before seems to be to pale compared to what they're doing right now. With that, Vala, as you see them kind of going to work, you still have this strange feeling just at the back of your mind. This sense of worry, almost dread, that's not your own. You're not sure why, but for whatever reason, something is worried. And with that, that is where we are going to end it for tonight. Thank you so much to anyone that tuned in live or is watching it on YouTube. If you missed any of the episode, I upload all of them to my YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/TraderJody. Check it out there. Feel free to watch it live. We go live at 9 p.m. Central Time every other Wednesday. Other than that, that's all for me. And I will see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.